Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a little while. We've taken a little hiatus. I moved into a new place. Life hits you kind of all at once, but happy to be back with all of you, updating and talking about just the new state of politics and things that are going on. As many of you know, the government shutdown just ended, the longest government shutdown in American history, which was way too long, dragged out by both sides. I'd actually say it was more the left than the right in this case. And I don't even think the left really accomplished the things that they wanted to accomplish. But here we are. It's over. We have a new clean resolution, and we are good to go for now until it expires in 2 years from now. So the first thing I want to talk about is for the race for governor is Katie Porter, Kevin Bianco, and a bunch of other cast of characters. You got Via Ragosa in there, a whole bunch of characters. So the real question is how are we going to replace Gavin Newsom? Now, I'm not a fan of his. Many people are not a fan of his. But the Gavin Newsom that was elected when the governor's race first happened is not the Gavin Newsom that we have now. And I'm very happy that we are getting rid of the Gavin Newsom that we have now, who is basically turned everything into I'm running for president, I'm fighting against Trump, and has joined this extreme left cause that is just, it's very divisive and not something that when you look at his previous political history or history in general of anything, doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all. So Katie Porter right now is the leading candidate for governor. She is a Democratic U.S. representatives member of Congress. She recently won her election and then decided to throw her hat in the governor's race. She right now, I believe, is still leading the polls, but she was really ahead in the polls until she had an absolutely abysmal interview where the pundit, I forget who it was, I don't know if it was CNN, ABC, something like that, asked her a question of what are you going to do as in the governor race to get Republican voters, because that is important in winning this race. And she gave kind of the craziest answer that I've ever heard, where it's, I don't need them. I don't need Republicans. I don't need Republican voters. I don't want them. Well, how do you expect to win an election when you live in a state where California that actually had the most Republican votes this year or this past election than any other previous election? So clearly, you got to do something to garner additional interest, additional votes, even if they are not necessarily, people that you want votes from. That's just how election politics works, right? Like, I let's say I'm running for governor, right? I'm running as a Republican in a predominantly, I don't know, liberal area. As a Republican candidate, I want to take some of the liberal voters away and push them to my side and to my cause. So the question of how I'm going to do that is a very valid one for running any kind of campaign. And the fact that she had no answer for that, and the fact that she took offense to it, and then decided to say to the candidate who, or the pundit who was interviewing her, like, this is disgusting. This is a disgusting question. I don't feel comfortable in this interview anymore. And then she proceeded to storm off instead of trying to answer any kind of questions. That's just crazy to me. That's not how any candidate should handle any kind of tough question. I mean, if I get tough questions at work from a bunch of people, I don't get to just get up and leave. I have to answer. Sometimes they're not questions I like. Sometimes they're questions I love. You never know. And that's kind of what being a politician is. And whether you are a Democrat or Republican, we can all agree on a candidate for governor or for any elected position should be able to answer hard questions. That is kind of the sole purpose of putting somebody in office, is so that they can conquer these challenging hurdles, these challenging questions, obstacles, different things that are in their way, or different things that we need to change. So how are we going to put somebody in that position who runs away from hard questions? It's just a question for everybody to think about when they are looking into the governor's race, which is coming up in the next year or so. It's just a scary thing that we can't produce better candidates than what we're getting. And I'm not just talking about California. I'm talking about all over the country. Our presidential elections, our senators, our congressmen, everybody. I mean, I think our mayors and governors are even worse than the rest. But if you look all over the country, it's just very sad to see the decentness, the being just a good person that just doesn't really exist anymore. It's more of who can garner more attention and who can take that attention and throw it at the other side in order to push back against policies that voters for Republicans or Democrats feel like makes a difference. Anyway, moving on. Kind of along the same lines, though. I live in Los Angeles, and I have a lot of friends that live in Ventura County in Los Angeles. There is a group. It's a woman and a couple other people that put up a tent every day on a busy street in a residential neighborhood. It is liberal left people. Again, I have no problem with left or right. I'm somewhat in the middle. But I think when you take something to an extreme, which we've talked about on this podcast before, it can be very dangerous. So this lady sets up a tent on a very busy street in Ventura County in a residential neighborhood that says, fuck Nazis, fuck ICE, fuck Donald Trump. And there's just been a lot of expletives and inappropriate language and inappropriate costumes that she and her staff wear that is just disturbing to live in a residential neighborhood around children. And anytime people come up to her, and disagree with her, she instigates fighting. So there was a video that I watched that my friend Josh had sent me where a concerned neighbor came up to her and said, "Hey, can you please do me a favor and take down those signs, or at least change the language on the signs, because I have, 3 and 4-year-old children, and I don't feel like seeing fuck this, fuck that is appropriate." And excuse my language, because that's not language I wanted to use on here either. But it goes to show just the lack of respect that we have for the people around us. It's all about me, and what can I do to help myself or to help a cause that I'm supporting. I'm all for her standing up for her rights to believe in ICE, for her right to anti-ICE, for her rights to believe in pro-immigration and different things like that. That's fine. But when you do it in a neighborhood and you're having concerned citizens come up to you and say, "Hey, can you just watch the language? Like, I don't want my 3 and 4-year-old to see that. Like just the big signs." I think that that's very reasonable. Now, I understand that the other side of the coin can be, "Hey, you're infringing upon free speech." That's not what that's not what I'm suggesting here. I'm just suggesting that you could curtail how big these signs are and how much attention you're bringing to the inappropriate language you're using. And I think also this concerned neighbor. So the video I saw, he comes up and he says, "Hey, can you please take it down?" And she said, "You're just a Nazi fascist pig." And he goes, "Actually, I'm Jewish, so I don't think that's accurate. I'm just asking you to control our neighborhood." And she throws her hands in it. "You're attacking me. I can't stand for this. I won't stand for this Nazi fascism." And I'm like, that's not even a word, number one. Number two, who's attacking you? All he did was ask you a question. But when I was on the phone with Josh and he sent me that video, I said to him, there's no winning with people like that. And unfortunately, the way things are right now, there are more of people like that in the world than reasonable, sound-minded people. I don't know when this shift happened. I think COVID had a lot to do with it, right? Like, I think we were cooped up inside. We were trying to find somewhere to belong, some environment to latch on to. And we didn't have the immediate, like, "Hey, I'm going to talk to you, you're going to talk to me" kind of thing. It was, "Oh, we're going to do everything online, chat rooms. Let me join this thing to make me feel, to make me feel valid." And, it's a very interesting way it's a very interesting way to live. And it's kind of sad for me as a millennial, Gen Z, however you want to term it, to see that more and more people my age are going that direction, this extreme direction, because they feel like they want to, belong somewhere. Just a very interesting shift that I think we're seeing all across the United States. I think we're even seeing it in the UK. I mean, when you look at the things that are going on there, it's a global thing. And I don't know when it changed. I think a lot of it has to do with what we're taught in schools, colleges, high schools, even elementary schools. There are things that we're taught, that kids are taught now, that I was not taught, and that even people, our parents weren't taught. And I don't know where or how we do it, but we need to regulate this. We need to regulate what we teach kids, because it's the most important thing we do. I tell this to people who are teachers or educators all the time. It is it is one of the most important jobs in the world, because what we teach our youth and what we teach people younger than us is is what we want our future to look like. If we want the future to be better, we should, teach these kids how to be productive human beings, how to get along with each other, how to build a better world, not how to build a world in which everybody attacks each other and there's no civil discourse and there's no, okay, I disagree with you on that, but I respect you and I like you as a person. That doesn't exist anymore. And we somehow got to get back to that. And I think it starts in the education system. I really, really do. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of it with that little spiel. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was this Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his podcast. For those of you who don't know who Nick Fuentes is, he is I'd say like a neoconservative, neocon Nazi, white supremacist Nazi is what they call him. I don't know I would term it, but he speaks a lot of hateful ideas, a lot of hateful rhetoric, there's a lot of hate speech for people who are different, for Black people, for Hispanic people, for immigrants, for Jews. It's really just disheartening to hear. And I think Tucker Carlson is a big name, right? He's the guy that gets millions of listeners to his podcast, whether you agree with him, disagree with him, which I disagree with a lot of the things he says. But he has a space that he worked years to get, and he has a space that is, it's huge. It touches a lot of people, gets a lot of ears. So why are you bringing people like this onto your podcast, getting millions of, listeners, millions of viewers? Why are you bringing that onto your podcast? I'm not telling this guy, Nick Fuentes, to just be quiet, go away. He can do whatever he wants. Everybody can do whatever they want. It's a free country, right? And that's fine. I strongly disagree with everything he believes in. I think it's disgusting and despicable, and there's really no place for hate speech like that anywhere in the world. But I think when you are a guy like Tucker Carlson that has this huge platform, you really need to be picky into who you bring on your podcast. I think that's for any big podcaster, YouTuber, anything. I think people are so into what's going to garner me views, what's going to be controversial, what's going to put me in the news, in the spotlight. This will do it for sure, because it definitely did. I think it was Tucker's most watched podcast episode that he had in the last, since the election site, since I think he had the vice president and some other people on earlier, in Trump's campaign run. So I understand it from a business perspective, but you have to think beyond business. Not everything in life is a business transaction. Not everything in life is what's going to make me the most popular. But I think that we're getting away from this. What's important? What's important to me? What's important to the country? What message do I want to put out? What message do I want to be associated with? I personally want to be associated with a message that brings about a better world, a more tame world, a more peaceful world, and something that can bridge this divide that we have. Whether I'm not asking for everybody to believe in one thing. I think that's the opposite of what I want. I think I want everybody to believe in what they believe in, but for us to be peaceful and autonomous at the same time. I think when you get into this merging, you get into, the Zorhan communist Marxist idea of unity. Everything should be one belief. Everything should be controlled by the government. That's dangerous thought too. So I think the answer here is to really watch who you listen to, who you affiliate with. If you have a podcasting platform or any platform, watch who you bring on, because it is very, very important to I don't know, people listening, because I have a lot of friends in my life that listen to things and they take that thing that they hear from somebody they respect as gospel. This is the truth. This is what it is. And it's very hard to argue with somebody who listens that way. But if we can control, not control, but if we can watch and be careful of who we are bringing on podcasts and what ideas we're spewing or talking about to people, then we can be a little bit better about, hey, I believe what this guy is saying and I like his podcast guests, but I also recognize that these people he's bringing on, they're smart people, they're educated people, they are, spewing positive messages, because I can't control what you or I take from whatever we listen to, but we can control how we act to it, and we can control what we listen to. So if we are putting just better content overall out across the internet, we're going to be in a better place. So yeah, I mean, that's really what I had to say about the Fuentes piece. I still can't believe that Tucker allowed that to be and that to be his guest, and it's something that he'll leave behind. It's a podcast episode that will always be out there for people to listen to, and it was not as disgusting as I thought it would be, but it's really bad, especially if you go back and you do some research into who Nick Fuentes is and what he believes in. It's very detrimental, I think, to society at large. Yeah. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, which I touched on a little bit, Ben Shapiro I don't always love what Ben has to say, but he had a great podcast episode. I think it was not a right versus left issue. It was something that I think every single person should listen to. It's called Generation Zorhan. It's with a Z. So it's Gen Z. And then it talks about Mamdani. And it's not ripping people necessarily for electing a guy that is, I can't even believe that he won an election, let alone was allowed to. I mean, anybody can run, but this just goes to show you that if there's a movement behind any person, anybody can win an election. But I can't believe we as Americans allowed this kind of guy to win an election. But I think his podcast talks it does such a good job of talking about how we got here. How did we allow somebody like Mamdani to win an election? How did we allow him to put himself in a situation that allowed him to, have any kind of platform to stand on? And how do we allow people who continue to push, pro-communist socialism, Marxism? Do you even know? Like, I don't think people really understand what that means, or what those ideas are. It's a collective idea, right? Go look at the Soviet Union and their politics for years. Look at why the Soviet Union collapsed, why the people who lived in the Soviet Union during the time of it were miserable, why there was so much violence and corruption and price gouging, and it was just a mess. And so if we continue to elect people that push this agenda, I'm not saying we become the Soviet Union, but our core principles as Americans change, right? And I think our principles are pretty good. I think life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness above anything else, and freedom and liberty and respect and love and peace. I think these are so important to our society. If we alter these pillars, what happens to society? What happens to the world that we live in? And what happens to the future we're leaving behind for our kids or for anybody? It just, this podcast episode really talked, I thought it did a good job of touching on this idea that my generation, Generation Z, wants to belong to something. We will do anything in our power to belong to something. So this Mamdani movement picked up a lot of steam, and all of a sudden you saw people who were younger who didn't even really know what he believed in. A lot of the people who are young voters who are younger than me now don't know what communism really was, don't know what socialism really was. And it's funny though, because also they want to go and brand Trump and JD Vance and the whole Trump administration as communist, fascists. But then they go and elect somebody that's literally pushing across pro-communist, pro-socialist, pro-fascist views. It doesn't make sense, and it just goes to show you that I don't know if it's the education system that's failing us or colleges that are failing us, or it's this need that Ben talks about for Generation Z people to belong to something. You see Mamdani's face. He's a nice looking guy and he wants to create change. And he, is fighting against Trump and fighting against things to make the world a better place. That's a great message. But did you look at his other views? He wants to have government run supermarkets. He wants to tax more. I mean, do you? I don't understand what the thought process is. I don't live in New York. I have a lot of friends that do, and my cousins live in New Jersey. I think this is something we all have discussed and talked about: is how did this guy win an election, and how did we give him a platform to do that, especially in New York, which is one of when you think of New York, you think of America, right? So this guy is going to run our versions of America. It's just crazy to think about. But we're here. And I hope that he doesn't actually do the things that he said he was going to do. But I don't know. And I'm a little scared. And Ben at Shapiro and a lot of conservatives, I think a lot of conservatives are sounding the bells a little too loudly. But I think that we should be concerned. And I think that it's important to really educate yourself on politics before you go and talk about it, before you go and vote, before you go and before you just engage in discussion with other people too, because this is what happens. This is a prime example of what happens when we don't know what we're talking about, but we insist that we do know what we're talking about. And it's a very scary thing that a lot of people my age like to do. They like to act like we know everything, and we talk like we know everything, and we don't, because we are young kids. We should be educating ourselves. We should be reading more. We should be listening to podcasts on both sides of the aisle, right, left, news organizations. Listen to podcasts about life. Mel Robbins has a great podcast about life, about how to look at things, about how to think about things, and how to work on yourself and your thought process. And if we can all do that, and we can understand how people different than us think, I think that we would end up with better candidates, and we'd end up with, we would just put ourselves in better situations. Okay. The next point that I want to touch on a little bit, I was doing research the other day because I'm 26 now, and I have a lot of friends that are getting engaged. Some girls, some guys, it differs, but I think it really made me think. I saw a couple of engagement photos of friends, and I'm like, whoa, I was just in college with them what feels like a year ago, but it was 4 years ago. But it made me curious. So I went on the internet and I looked up what is the average age of male and female. What ages are male and females in America getting married at now? So in 2013, 26.6 was the average age of a woman getting married. So men didn't change a whole lot from 2013 until present. It was always kind of around 28.4 for men. But it was around 26.6 was the average age for women in 2013. Since 2013, the average age for marriage for women is 28.9. That is a pretty drastic increase. So 3.2%, which is like 3.5 years almost now, women are waiting. And I think it's good in a lot of ways because women are getting an education now more widely than they ever were before. In 2013, I think women were educated, and now the numbers have risen to over 70% of women have gone to college or have college degrees and have a working job. Well, I think that it's still around 54% of women that have working jobs in their 30s. But it's a really good thing. It's a good thing that people are prioritizing themselves, their academic careers, their personal careers, their jobs. it's a very good thing. But I do think that there is still a little bit of a reason for alarm here. I think the first thing is that a lot of men, a lot of women are prioritizing their careers and their education, so much so to the extent that they are not focusing on families, happiness, building an income in order to support a life with somebody else. I think that's why we see this huge wealth gap happening. And a lot of people my age are having trouble catching up to the wealth accumulated by people in their, you know, late 30s, early 40s. I think it's because we're putting so much of a weight on our career that we are not saving money the right way, and we're not planning on a life that is, I don't know, a future with somebody else, because that's the goal, right? Is to meet your person, to, you know, settle down, to have kids or not have kids, whatever floats your boat, but to find happiness somewhere. And this age, this age of marriage is increasing, which is a little bit of a cause for alarm, but at the same time, it's also a good thing. So it's just tough to balance, but it's just something I wanted to share just because I thought it was interesting that it had risen over almost 3.5 years in just a 10-year, well, actually, it's like a 15-year timeline now. And it's interesting. And it'll be interesting to see if the average age of marriage continues to go up or if it continues to go down. Same thing with kids. People are having kids in their mid 30s now. That's very different. My parents had me when they were younger. A lot of people have kids when they're younger in their 20s. I think that's what I thought. And a lot of parents did that, you know, the generation ahead of us. But my generation seems to be pushing it back more. And that's fine. I think that's totally okay. But I just think it's something to be aware of, and it's something to monitor. And it shouldn't be something that we're like putting off on purpose. I think finding success, finding happiness, um, it's important. But I also think that I think it's really important, and I think that we should be thinking of it when we are looking to build our careers, because happiness and our future should help us, you know, live in the now. Anyway, the next thing is I don't know if you were all paying attention, but BBC put a documentary together about the January 6th storming of the Capitol. BBC has been under fire by the Trump administration and by actually a lot of different organizations for misuse of information, for misadvertising, for being, I guess, just portraying very biased news, which is not what America should be. It's not what we used to be. News has always been funny in that it doesn't always cover the things that I think we should be covering. I talked about this. I used to talk about this all the time when I was little, is how come you turn on the news and the first thing you see is a car chase, or this family was murdered, or I don't know, Donald Trump or you know, Joe Biden, they're doing terrible things. They're doing this thing, and or they went to this place today, or oh look, Trump's voice changed today. Is he sick? Is he old? What's going on? And it's less of, wow, look at these firefighters saved this person's house. Look at this business, right? This doctor saved 3 people in the emergency room today who got in a car accident and could have died. I don't know. This kid just graduated with honors, and was the valedictorian of his class. There's just not a lot of happy news stories. It's always been that we focus on negative news. I don't know if, and obviously news outlets know more than I do in terms of what brings eyeballs to their screens, and I'm sure that the eyeballs are politics, bad things like that. But when did we get that way? Why do we not like to watch nice things? Why do we not like to see positive stories? I think it's because a lot of us are very jealous of other people. It's not it's just something that I think I've noticed a significant change in since COVID, really, or maybe just since I got older, is that people are selfish. People do not want to congratulate other people for the things they do. We'd rather tear them down for the bad things they do or for the mistakes that they made. No matter how much good they've done, we want to rip them down for the things that they did that were negative. And I think that BBC did the same thing. So they put this footage, this footage of January 6th that kind of moshed together into a documentary, and they purposefully cut certain words from Trump's speech before he left office and during the storming of the Capitol, and they pieced it together to make it look like he was saying, "Storm the Capitol, I will join you afterwards. Be patriots." It's just disgusting stuff. Now, do I think Trump could have done more with the storming of the Capitol? Yes, I think he should have absolutely got on airwaves and said, "Stop this. This is ridiculous. This is not okay." And he didn't do that. But to say that he instigated this and he was calling for people and said, "Yes, riot. Yes, do this. Yes, kill people. Yes, do this stuff." No, he didn't do that. And cutting clips together to make it look that way is not right. It's actually kind of disgusting, and it should make all of you question: Are these news outlets, are the documentaries we're watching, are the things that we're seeing, are they real? Are they true? Also, BBC, when this got flagged by, I think the Trump administration flagged it, but also the FDA and some other, or FCC and FBI flagged it as well. BBC fired everybody who was a part of the documentary, including their president and an acting director of documentaries. It's a very dangerous thing when we misappropriate news or we lie on public TV to try to sway public opinion about one topic in a direction. I think it infringes upon our First Amendment, and it infringes upon our right to free speech. It infringes upon our right to happiness. It infringes upon everything that we should hold dear to our society and to being an American. And I think that we need to be very cautious with this. And it should be a lesson to everybody not to necessarily not believe the things they're seeing, but to question it sometimes and say, is this real, what I'm watching right now? Let me do some research after I finish watching this documentary, or I just got off the news hearing about Trump attacking, Venezuelan gangs. Is he really like going in there and trying to kill people? Is he really going in there and targeting these cartels with drone strikes and different things like that? Because that's just an example, but it's really important to do your research and to make sure that we don't believe everything that is said to us, because sometimes, actually a lot of the time, we're getting half truths and things that try to push us in a direction that somebody else wants us to believe. And I just think that it is very important to really, really do your research. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about is, so I was thinking of touching on the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I'm not going to do that. And here's why I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because I don't think that a man who was not popular, that we knew nothing about during the time he was alive, should all of a sudden be getting a ton of attention for the disgusting acts that he did now that he's dead. Sure, I think that the file should be released. I don't see why they should be kept from us. I don't know what's going to be on those files. I don't know if they're going to be what everybody thinks, that it's going to be some master list of clients that he had. But I just don't think that it is worth me talking about, because he is not worth my time. He's not worth your time. I think somebody disgusting and sick like that should not be getting as much airtime, and it shouldn't be a political issue either. I think the file should get released. I don't know why that's a political thing. Let him go. Let the public see him. Leave it alone. It does make you question, though, when Trump and these other people don't want them put out. It is fair to say, well, why are you being? It's like anybody that gets defensive. Why are you being so defensive about something if you claim not to care about it? But whether he's on there or not, he's our president. I mean, sure, we could use it as grounds to impeach him, but it'd be very difficult, very, very, very difficult from a legal standpoint. Doable, but very, very, very hard. I don't know. I don't really want to spend any more time talking about it. I think it's a disgusting thing to talk about. What I want to focus on instead is Trump talked about a 50-year mortgage plan. In theory, this really, really helps my generation, because for a lot of us who don't own homes yet and who are saving money to try to buy their first home, a 50-year mortgage drops the amount of money that I need to have to put a down deposit on a house. So let's say now on an $800,000 house, I don't know, in Orange County somewhere, I want to put $160,000 down and then pay, the 20-year mortgage and pay more my mortgage payments over time. That's more doable, right? My mortgage payments will probably, if it's a 5.5%, will probably be around 4 grand, 4 grand a month, which is expensive, but doable. A 50-year mortgage would mean that you put less down. So on an $800,000, I'm just doing math in my head, you'd be putting down probably closer to 85 to 95K, and you're paying less each month, but you're paying it over time for 50 years, which also means that you may be paying on mortgage on a house. Well, I mean, if you stay in the same house your whole life, you got to live there 50 years before you get the house paid off, as opposed to a 20-year mortgage where you live at a place for 20 years and then you pay it off. I mean, sure, you could pay it off, more in chunks, but the interest earned over time also adds to things. So I think it's a good idea, because Trump's trying to think of, how can I make it more affordable for young kids to buy houses and to afford houses in America. Here's the problem, though, and Ben Shapiro talked about it a little bit on the podcast that I suggested you all listen to. We have a problem in our country right now with inflation. Inflation has gone nuts. I mean, the price of groceries, you're spending close to $200 to $250 for, I don't know, a family of 2 or 3 a week for groceries. That's absurd. I remember going to the market and $100 for the week was crazy. Now $100 seems like a steal or a bargain. Let alone the price of gas is like $5-6 here in LA. The price of a car is a nice car is like $50,000. The price of a house now in LA, forget it. 800K, I told you, that is extremely rare for like a 1-bedroom tiny house somewhere, maybe. You're looking at close to $1 million here for something nice, really nice. Just around the country, prices are going crazy. And so this 50-year mortgage plan, while it does help people get into houses sooner, it's going to increase the price of things. It doesn't help our inflation problem. It actually makes things worse, because when you look at it, it's going to bring more buyers to the home market, which means that prices for houses, they're going to go up. When the demand goes up, I mean, this is classic economics. When the demand goes up, the price goes up. And then eventually they level out, right? If the demand goes down, the prices drop. They kind of go hand in hand. If the demand goes up and the prices go down, you're going to excuse my language, you're going to buy the shit out of that thing because it makes sense. But with this 50-year mortgage plan, it's going to increase the price of housing, the price of loans, the price of mortgages, the price of just about everything. Income taxes. Trump's talked about getting rid of income taxes for people who are making 100K or less a year. That's great, but that also increases inflation. So it's interesting that he recognizes, and a lot of Americans recognize, that the price of things need to come down. Inflation is the highest now that it has ever been at any time, and that is the number one threat to our country right now, is inflation. So you think that the people in office would be doing something to, try to combat it. And I'll give Trump credit. He's coming up with a lot of different ideas. Now, has he put any into practice yet? No. And at least he's thinking of ideas, but these ideas are actually going to make things worse. You think that there's people in Washington that are smart enough to give him some plans of things that will work to reduce the prices of things. But they're not doing it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lobbyists, a lot of big companies that are in bed with different politicians that need things and need prices to go up so that their companies can stay afloat, or that they can pay back loans or pay back people that they owe money to down. We need some kind of policy that will help us build a better future for our kids, for ourselves, for a family. It is very, very, very difficult for the average person to live right now. For me to afford this apartment, for me to afford my car insurance, health insurance, let alone if I have a house. Oh, well, I got to get renter's insurance here. But if I have a house, you have property insurance. There are so many expenses, and there's not a lot of help for my age specifically because yes, wages have increased, but not enough to suffice for the price of everything else. So I'm a single person and it's hard sometimes to get by. But somebody who imagine somebody my age that has two kids and a wife and a dog and they work a job that makes, I don't know, $100,000 and they're 26 or 27. That's really good money at that age, but it's not enough to support a whole family like that. So, you'd think that our government would be paying more attention to policies that would bring the price of these things down. And I don't think it's something we're doing right now. But yes, while I do think that the 50-year mortgage plan could be really good to first time home buyers, it also may really hurt the market, the real estate market, and it's just going to increase our inflation issues. And it's something that we should all be aware of. Anyway, yeah, I know it's a shorter podcast. I didn't have too much to cover, but that was kind of it. I kind of wanted to give my opinions on a couple of key topics and key things that are going on. Stay vigilant, read, research, pay attention to news, listen to podcasts. People are very, very smart. You'd be very, very surprised at how many people are smart and how many people have good things to say. But yeah, I encourage you to continue to listen. Keep listening to my podcast. I'll keep giving you my thoughts on current events in politics that fly a little bit more under the radar than some other big topics that everybody covers. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thank you.